They called her a monster, locked inside a dark, cold chamber at the heart of the galactic fortress. She sat alone. Thick chains wrapped around her arms, legs, and neck. Glowing energy cuffs blinked red every time she moved. Her purple skin shimmered faintly under the dim lights, and her violet eyes glowed like twin moons in the shadows to the galaxy. She was danger, a creature of war, a weapon that once burned a fleet from the sky with just a scream. No one remembered her real name. They only called her the Beast. Guards refused to enter her cell. Even automated drones kept their distance. Every file on her was marked extreme threat, do not approach. They said she tore men apart with her hands. They said she fed on fear. But no one had seen her speak. No one had seen her move in. Weeks until one human arrived. His name was Kalen, a young security officer new to the fortress. He didn't look like a hero. He wasn't big or famous. He had quiet eyes and a curious heart. His orders were simple. Guard the West Wing, report anomalies. Stay away from Cell 9, the monster's cage. But Kalen was different. He didn't like following rules without reason. One night, during his patrol, he paused in front of the sealed door of Cell 9. It was silent. Cold air leaked from the cracks. His hand hovered over the panel. Just one peek, he thought. He entered the observation room. Behind a thick glass wall, he saw her. She didn't look like a monster. She was sitting still, her knees drawn to her chest. Her long black hair hung like a curtain over her face. Her skin was bruised and cracked in places. The chains looked too heavy for her thin frame. She wasn't roaring or snarling. She looked tired. Kalen watched for a moment, frozen. She didn't lift her head, but somehow she knew he was there. Her eyes slowly rose, meeting his through the glass. A chill ran down his spine. Not from fear, but from something else. Sadness. Her eyes weren't full of hate. They were full of pain. Kalen returned every night. He never spoke. He just stood there, watching her. She never moved, but she always looked back. There was something quiet between them, like two strangers standing on opposite sides of a river. One night, he brought something with him, a small food pack. He left it on the tray slot and pushed it into her chamber. He wasn't allowed to, but he did it anyway. Didn't he touch it? But she didn't ignore it either. Her eyes followed him as he stepped back. That was the first time he saw her blink. Guards laughed at him the next day, wasting food on a beast. One said, "She'll eat your face next." Kalen ignored them. To him, she wasn't a beast. She was alone, forgotten like a weapon someone had used, then thrown away. He started leaving food every night. And once, he even whispered through the glass, "What's your name?" She didn't answer. But that night, she didn't look away. Reports said she hadn't spoken in years, that she only screamed, that she attacked anything that came near. But Kalen didn't see rage. He saw a prisoner, a soul buried beneath fear and silence. The galaxy feared her because of stories. But Kalen didn't believe stories. He believed what he saw, and what he saw was a girl chained, beaten, and left in the dark. One night, as the lights flickered in the hallway, Kalen stood at his usual place, eyes locked with hers. She stared back longer than usual. Then her lips moved, just once. Just one word. Why? The sound was soft, cracked, like dry leaves in wind. But it shook him. Kalen stepped closer to the glass. "Why what?" he asked. She didn't speak again. But her question hung in the air. Why did he keep coming? Why did he care? Why wasn't he afraid? Kalen didn't know how to answer. Not yet. But something inside him knew this wasn't the end of a nightmare. This was the beginning of a truth the galaxy had ignored for too long, and he was ready to find it. Kaylin couldn't sleep that night. Her voice, just one word, kept echoing. In his head, why? It wasn't anger. It wasn't a threat. It was something else, something fragile, like a voice that hadn't been used in years and was afraid to speak. The next evening, Kaylin walked back to the observation room. His heart beat faster than usual. He didn't know if she would speak again. He didn't even know if she remembered him. But something told him she was waiting. She sat in the same place, chains still wrapped around her limbs like heavy vines. Her head was bowed, hair hiding her face. But the moment he entered, she lifted her eyes. They locked on his. Not like before. This time, they followed him, studied him, as if trying to read the pages of a book. Her gaze wasn't just watching neat, was searching. He placed another food pack on the tray. Slowly pushed it through the slot. He didn't expect thanks. He just hoped she would eat. But she didn't move. She kept staring at him, as if the food didn't matter. You asked me why, Kalan said quietly, standing just a few feet away on the other side of the glass. I don't know the full answer yet. But, ... maybe because you look like someone who doesn't deserve to be in a cage. The lights flickered above them, casting long shadows across her cell. She didn't blink. Her expression remained calm, yet her eyes. There was something behind them, storm that hadn't yet broken. Kaylin sat down on the floor, legs crossed. Just like a visitor in front of someone they wanted to understand. He leaned his head back against the wall. I read your file, he said softly. It said you were captured on the battlefield. That you destroyed a squadron of ships. Ugh. That your voice causes pain, that your hands can melt steel. She didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on his. But I don't believe files, he continued. Files are written by scared people. You don't look like a monster. You look like someone who was hurt, used, left behind. Still no words. Minutes passed. Silence filled the room like thick smoke. Yet Kaylin didn't move. Neither did she. But her gaze never broke. It was strange. He had spoken more to her in silence than he had too many humans in words. Suddenly, she shifted. Her hand moved slightly, a barely noticeable twitch, toward the food tray. Kaylin didn't react. He pretended not to notice. He just kept talking, gently. I was once left behind too, he said. Not by the galaxy, just by the people I thought were family. I learned early not to trust what others say. I learned to see with my own eyes. Her fingers touched the edge of the food pack. She pulled it close. She didn't eat. Not yet. But she held it, as if testing if it was real. If kindness was real. For the first time, Kaylin saw her lips move again. No sound this time. But her mouth shaped the same word. Why? It's only this time. It didn't sound like a question, too. Him, it sounded like a memory. That night, long after he had left the room, her eyes remained open. She didn't sleep. She didn't close them, because for the first time in years, someone had looked back, and not with fear, with care, with hope. With human eyes, the galaxy had always watched her from a distance, with fear and judgment. But he was the first one, who watched her without chains on his heart. And she noticed. She always noticed, because her eyes never missed anything. They were trained to see danger, but this time they had seen something new. They had seen ... him. The next day, the galaxy felt heavier, not because of war or politics or another space battle, but because something had shifted quietly, secretly in a cell no one cared about anymore. Kaylin arrived early, earlier than usual. The guards at the checkpoint rolled their eyes, still trying to be the beast's boyfriend. One laughed. Kaylin ignored them. He was used to it now. But deep inside, something was changing in him too. Each night he sat by that glass, he felt like he wasn't guarding her. He was guarding a truth the world refused to see. She wasn't a monster. She was someone who had been silenced for too long. Tonight, Kalen brought more than food. He brought a drawing. A simple one. Just a piece of paper with two figures on it, one human, one alien. Standing together beneath stars, he slid it into the tray slot. She didn't react at first. But then, slowly, her hand reached out, pulling the paper toward her. Her fingers were long and scarred. Not claws. Not weapons. Just hands tired and unsure. For a long time, she stared at the drawing. Then, for the first time, she moved her. Lips and sound came. Not loud. Not clear. But real. A voice, soft, hoarse. Like it hadn't been used in years. "Me," she whispered. Kalen's eyes widened. He stood frozen, then nodded. Double quotes, "Yes," he said, his voice shaking. "That's you and me." She blinked, confused. "Together." "Yes," he whispered again. Not in chains. Not in fear. She looked at the drawing again. Her chest rose and fell, slow and shaky. She pointed to herself. "Beast," she said, her voice cracking. Kalen shook his head. "No, not to me." He walked closer to the glass, pressing his hand gently against it. "You're not what they say." There was a long pause. Then she said another word, one that made his heart stop. "Name." Kalen blinked. "You want mine?" She nodded slowly. "Kalen," he said softly. "I'm Kalen." The alien woman's lips moved again. Ka-Len. It was the first time someone had spoken his name with that much care. Then she touched her own chest, hesitating. Her voice broke as she spoke a name not heard in 100 databases. Not written in any report. A name erased long ago. Leora. Kalen smiled. It was the most beautiful name he had ever heard. Leora. Not beast, not weapon, not monster. She had a name, and now, someone to say it. That night, back in his quarters, Kalen didn't sleep. He wrote Leora's name over and over on a blank data slate. Like it was a treasure he couldn't let go of, in the dark, behind layers of steel and silence. A voice had risen. The world had labeled her a creature of terror. But she had just spoken like a child learning to talk again. And Kalen. He felt like he had heard the universe breathe for the first time. One word, one name, Liora, and everything was about to change. The news spread quietly. Like smoke slipping under doors, the beast spoke. Guards whispered it in passing. Officers glanced nervously toward Cell 9. No one believed it at first. Some laughed. Others called it a glitch in the cell's audio sensors. Monsters didn't talk. Monsters didn't have names, but Kalen knew the truth. She had spoken. Twice she had said "me." And then she had said Leora. Her name was still echoing in his mind days later. He carried it like a secret gem in his chest, something too precious for others to touch. While others saw chains and fear, Kalen saw something rare, a spark, trying to survive inside darkness, and he was determined to protect it. That night, Kalen walked into the observation room with something new, a soft blanket. It wasn't regulation. He could be punished, but he didn't care. The room was always cold. He had noticed her shivering. He slid the blanket through the tray slot without a word. Leora looked at it, confused at first. Then slowly, almost shyly, she picked it up and pulled it over her shoulders. Her eyes met his. No chains could hold back that Lakit was pure warmth. A flicker of trust. The next day, the teasing began. You dressing up your alien girlfriend. Now, one guard joked. She'll melt your face off next. Another laughed. Kalen didn't respond. But deep inside, the fire inside him grew. Their words couldn't touch what he had seen. What he had felt. Each night, he returned. And each night, Leora changed bit by bit. She sat up straighter. Her chains didn't rattle as much. Her shoulders stopped shaking. Her eyes, once empty, now held a faint glow not of rage, but of hope and something even rarer, curiosity. One night she pointed at the scars on his hand. Pain? She asked. Kalen nodded. Old wound, training accident. Leora stared at it, then looked down at her own hands, covered in marks. Same, she said. He gave a soft smile. Then, I guess we're not that different. That made her blink. No one had ever said that before. The galaxy had always drawn a line, human on one side, her kind on the other. But Kalen had stepped over it. And now, Leora was meeting him halfway. Their conversations were slow, simple. 1 or 2 words each. Night, but every word was a victory. Every moment felt like a wall was breaking. She asked about Earth, about stars, about colors she'd never seen. He told her stories, described oceans, trees, birds. She listened like a child hearing fairy tales for the first time. Sometimes she smiled, a real soft smile, and that smile changed everything. She wasn't a beast. She was someone who had been starved of kindness for too long. One night, as he stood to leave, she said something that made him freeze. Come back. Kalen turned, stunned. You want me to come back tomorrow? She nodded. It was the first time she had asked for anything. The first time she had shown fear not of him, but of being alone again. Kalen stepped closer to the glass. I'll be back, I promise. And for the first time in her long, silent captivity, she believed someone in a prison designed to hold monsters. Something impossible was happening. Not an escape, not a riot, but a quiet rebellion against fear. A bond was forming, unseen, unwritten, but powerful enough to crack the strongest walls. Because one human guard chose to care, and one monster dared to hope. It began with a flicker, just one small flicker of the lights in the corridor. At first, no one noticed. The galactic fortress often suffered brief power hiccups, but Kalen did notice. He always did. And this time, his gut twisted. Then came the second flicker. Then a hum, and then the alarms screamed. Internal security breach. Containment failure. All guards report. Immediately, the fortress shook as a deep rumble echoed through the walls. Sirens turned red. Doors locked. Protocols activated. The prison's most dangerous. Inmates, creatures from all corners of the galaxy, were now loose. The system called it an auto-purge directive. A cold name for something horrifying. Kalen's blood ran cold. He didn't run to the command center. He didn't follow his squad. He ran to her, cell 9.Liora, when he reached the observation room. Her eyes were already glowing, wide with fear. Smoke crept in through the vents. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The red lights made her look like the very thing the galaxy feared, but Kalen saw something else. She wasn't angry. She was terrified. The emergency purge countdown had begun. She was going to be erased, burned, forgotten, silenced. Again, Kalen didn't think. He acted. He slammed his ID into the override panel. Warnings flashed. Access denied. He cursed. Tried again. Denied. His heart pounded like thunder. His fists shook. Then he looked up at her. Lar. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't begging. She was just watching him come, like she had accepted her fate. But her eyes, they betrayed her. They still held hope. Hope in him. I made a promise, Kalen whispered. He drew his blaster and aimed it at the panel. One shot, sparks exploded. The lock hissed. The chamber door slid open halfway before jamming. Kalen slipped inside. The room was shaking. The chains on Leora glowed red. He'd had seconds. He rushed forward and knelt beside her. Her arms were still, bound with thick, glowing energy cuffs. "I'm getting you out of here," he said. She looked at him, confused. "Danger," she whispered. "I am danger." He shook his head. "No, you're not." Her eyes softened, with trembling hands. He pulled out the tool he had hidden for Deza magnetic cutter. He had taken it from maintenance, not knowing if he'd ever use it. Now was the time. The chains sparked, screeched, one by one. They fell. The cuffs released with a hiss. She didn't move. She just stared at her wrists. At her hands, free Kalen stood back. "Come on," he said. "We need to go." She rose slowly. Unsteady on her feet, the walls shook again. A vent exploded behind them. Alarms grew louder. The purge countdown hit its final phase. They ran down smoke-filled corridors, past blinking drones and sparking wires. More explosions, prisoners howling. Metal doors slamming shut. Kalen guided her like a shadow. His heart screamed in his chest. He had never run so fast, but he never looked back. Only forward, only toward freedom. Then, ahead, came the blockade. 3 armed guards, guns raised. "Stop." One shouted, "Put the creature down." Kalen stepped. "In front of Leora, she's not a creature. She's with me. She'll kill you. She'll save me already," Kalen growled. "And now I'll save her." The guards aimed, and that's when Leora stepped forward. Her body began to glow up from rage, but from something deeper. Her skin shimmered. Her eyes lit up like twin stars. A soft wave of energy pulsed from her body, not an attack shield. The guards stumbled backward, shielding their eyes. Their weapons jammed, sparks flying. She didn't harm them. She only protected him. In that moment, Kalen saw her not as a prisoner, not as a myth, not as a beast, but as a guardian, a being of power, of purpose, of choice, and she had chosen to stand by him. They escaped through the emergency hangar. Smoke trailed behind them. The fortress collapsed into chaos. But Kalen didn't care. He had done what no one else had dared. He freed the one the world feared. And now? She was more than a story. She was real, and she was walking beside him. They ran under a sky that was on fire. Above them, ships screamed through the atmosphere, escape pods, patrol fighters, and falling debris painting trails of smoke across the stars. The galactic fortress was crumbling behind them, its once impossible walls now just burning ruins in the distance. But Kalen didn't look back, and neither did Lar. They had no ship, no transport, just a stolen path through the outer desert moon, and their feet pounding the sand, one desperate step after another. Kalen's lungs burned. His legs screamed. The stolen oxygen mask over his face was cracked. His body was failing. But he pushed forward because she was still running beside him. Leora didn't stumble. Her steps were sure, even though her body had been locked in chains for years. The cold winds tore at her skin, but she didn't slow down, her eyes glowing. In the starlight were fixed ahead. They found a canyon, a deep cut in the land, narrow and sharp, hidden from the fortress scanners. Kalen knew about it from the base maps. It was their only chance to hide. They slid down the rocks into the canyon. Then the sound hit them. Drones above, dozens of them, swarming like angry metal bees, scanning the ground. Armed, ruthless, programmed to kill anything that escaped Cell 9. Kalen pushed Leora behind a jagged wall of stone. He raised his blaster, but he knew it was pointless. Too many, too fast, And then something changed. Leora stepped out from the shadows. "Kaylin, down." She said it wasn't a whisper this time. It was a command. Her voice was no longer broken. It was clear, strong, alive. Kaylin dropped behind the rock, and the sky lit up, line of war. Lifted her arms, not in anger, but with calm control. The air around her bent. The ground pulsed with light dot, and then silence. The drones stopped, mid-air, frozen. The wind stilled. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath, and one by one, the drones fell gently like leaves, touching the earth. No explosions, no chaos, just peace. Controlled, elegant, terrifying in its beauty. Kaylin peeked from behind the rock, stunned. Liora stood there, bathed in soft, violet light, her hair floating gently around her shoulders. Her skin shimmered like crystal. Her eyes no longer filled with fear held something ancient. Power not the kind that destroyed, but the kind that chose. She turned to him. "I didn't know I could still do that," she said softly. Kaylin stepped out slowly, his voice shaking. "What was that?" Leora looked at the sky, then back to him. "My people made me a weapon. Then they caged me because they feared what I might become. And what did you become?" he asked. Her answer came like thunder wrapped in silk. "Free." That night, they hid in a cave. The canyon walls shielded them from sensors. The heat faded. The silence returned. Kaylin sat beside a small fire, staring at her across the flames. She wasn't chained anymore. She wasn't shrinking in fear. She sat tall, calm, like someone who had remembered who she truly was. "I should be afraid of you," he said quietly. She tilted her head. "Are you?" He met her gaze and smiled, slow and honest. "No, I've never felt safer." She looked away, her lips twitching. A soft laugh escaped her mouth. It was the first time. He had heard her laugh. It didn't sound like a monster. It sounded like someone finally breathing for the first time in years. Above them, the galaxy searched. Satellites scanned. Bounties rose. The message was clear. The beast has escaped. Human accomplice confirmed. But down below, hidden in silence, the truth was something else entirely. The monster hadn't escaped. She had been released, and her power was no longer locked behind walls or chains. It walked freely now, right beside a human who saw her not as a weapon, but as a person. Days passed. They hid in the shadows of a forgotten moon, surrounded by rocks, silence, and stars. No alarms, no sirens, just quiet. It felt like the galaxy had moved on, still screaming Leora's name as a threat while never realizing she had already let go of her chains. Kaylin built a shelter from scraps. It wasn't much, just steel plates, wires, and patience. Leora helped, though she had never used human tools before. Her hands were gentle but unsure. Her voice, once rare, now came freely, soft and curious. She asked about Earth, about oceans, what it felt like to swim, what it meant to dance. He asked about her people, her sky, what songs they sang before the war. They spoke like two children trying to understand the world again, not through fear, but through wonder. One night, under the stars, Kaylin sat by the edge of the cliff, watching a small meteor shower fall in slow silver streaks. He didn't hear her approach, but he felt her. Leora sat beside him, knees tucked up, hair gently catching the wind. They didn't speak. Silence between them was never empty. It was full. Then she said quietly, "They still think I'm a beast." He looked at her. "Do you?" She didn't answer right away. "I was made to fight, to kill. I did terrible things. Even if I was forced, I still did them." "You survived," he said. She shook her head. Surviving isn't living. Kalen turned fully to her. His voice was soft, but steady. You're living now. She looked at him. Did you touch the glass that first night? He smiled. Because I wanted you to know someone was there. Then, slowly, he reached out again, not toward glass, this time, but toward her hand. His fingers hovered, inches from hers. She stared at them. Frozen, no one had ever touched her gently before. Every contact in her life had been violence, restraints, chains, surgery, battle. This was different. She didn't move at first, but then slowly she placed her hand in his. It was warm, it was trembling, and it was real in that single touch. The galaxy cracked not from war, not from destruction, but from connection. A human and an alien. A soldier and a weapon. A man and a being the universe had cast aside. And now, in the quiet, they simply held hands beneath the stars. No fear, no chains. Just two souls finding light in each other's shadows. They stayed like that until the sun rose over the distant horizon, soft and golden. When it touched her face, Kalen saw something new in her eyes, not power, not pain, but peace. Thank you, she whispered. For what? He asked. For seeing me. He squeezed her hand gently. It's all I ever wanted to do. And though the galaxy still called her a monster, and though bounty ships still searched for them across every star, Liora no longer hid who she was, because someone had touched her not with fear, but with faith, and that touch changed everything.